You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
All right, everybody, there's a lot of hard truths out there. One of them, looks like we have a new Cold War. Looks like we have an enemy that we can really sink our teeth into and hate. According to the mainstream media and the politicians, you bet, folks. Now, Russia on its part, or for its part, folks, came out with some serious SHTF attitude today. Welcome to the Prepared Mind channel, where we talk about shit hitting the fan. Send this address, this internet address, out to people you know they need to wake up. They need to get prepared. That means food. That means water. That means shelter. That means clothing. That means medicine. That means a means of self-defense. People better wake up. We got some nasty stuff coming. Now, does that mean nuclear war? No. Not necessarily. Does that mean real on-the-ground boots and bullets? Probably not, but possibly, right? How do we know? We can't get a straight answer out of DC. We can't get anything straight. So we may as well straighten ourselves out, and that's why we're preppers. Welcome to the show. Get your questions in if you're live on patreon.com, the Prepared Mind Patreon. Monday through Friday, you get to ask questions in the Q&A. Right now, I'm going to do my monologue. So get your questions into Jolene. And Jolene, thank you. Ooh, man, thank you. And John M., I got your email. I'll get to you when we're done with the show. Everyone else, sit back, buckle up that seatbelt. We're going to get into it. So Russia is now describing what's happening as a hot war. Yeah, it would make some sense since they're firing ammo, since they got tanks rolling, choppers flying, right? And attitudes coming off the hook. Yeah, it's hot, but this is a little different than what you might think, right? The head of Russian Foreign Intelligence Services, the SVR, may as well be the GRU or the KGB, Sergei Narishkin, he kind of let out a number of what I would call very important statements. Some might call them bombshells, which reveal Moscow's broader objectives, right? In this war, this conflict, right? They called it the Vietnam conflict. We're not even in this one, folks, and I don't think we need to be. But Russia sees a wider picture concerning its security, its ultimate goals for its security. Narishkin said that, quote, "For us, this is no longer a Cold War with the West, but a hot war." He said in a rare statement, I don't know how rare that is, quote, "Russia now has a real chance to put an end to the war that has been waged in the post-Soviet space for the past 30 years. He's not talking about the space race, folks. He's talking about the war that's waged in the Soviet space, meaning the ex-Soviet Union. Poland, East Germany, Lithuania, Estonia. I think I read off the map the other day of the 14 different countries that have gone over to NATO, right? That is anti-Russia. Okay, to be a member of NATO is now anti-Russia. Well, Ukraine was the last straw, right? And that's what he's talking about when he says a war that has been waged in the post-Soviet space. That is the eastward expansion of NATO closer and closer to Russia. They see that as an extreme threat, folks. Can you blame them? With the idiotic politicians we have, the idiotic bureaucrats, the idiotic, shall I say, Pentagon. Folks, I've got some news here that's just going to make your, well, it's going to make you cringe. Okay, we're engaged right now in behind the scenes, let's call them arguments, debates with Russia. You bet there's politicians in Washington talking to politicians in Moscow, making threats, making promises, trying to make deals. They're trying to end this so that the U.S. can save face. Russia wants its security. That's what it's after. It's stated that pretty clearly. In no uncertain terms with Ukraine, with U.S., with NATO, etc. So in order to convince Russia to take us seriously, the U.S. Army today came out and announced mandatory training on pronouns and gender dysphoria. You have got to be kidding me. We have real conflict in Ukraine over NATO aggression. I'm going to call it NATO aggression because NATO has aggressively been expanding towards Russia, and Russia has finally had enough. Okay, maybe we can explain it that way. NATO aggression, taking over and joining voluntarily, right? 14, 15 different countries. Now, so the U.S. Army is supposed to be part of NATO, and they're worried, folks, so much that they're going to have mandatory training on pronouns and gender dysphoria. It used to be there were men and there were women. And we said, okay, there's room in this man's military for women. You bet. Right? They're Americans. They want to serve in the military. Let them in. Okay. We have come so far to the ridiculous extreme that now the Army, the military, wants its soldiers to learn how to call people who have gender dysphoria, which means gender confusion. They're not sure what's in their pants. And their pronouns. If you look like a dude and someone says, hey, dude, that's what you get. If you wear makeup and lipstick, right? Wow. So, right, what are these? Combat ready, unit preparedness, unit effectiveness, morale. Right. So the Army is now more ready to go kill the enemy because they feel like they haven't been offended by somebody calling them by the wrong pronoun. Russia and its military are laughing, folks. Is that the new strategy, to use comedy and self-deprecation by the Army to destroy the enemy? How does this help anything? Or does this actually, folks, encourage the Russians to continue their program knowing the U.S. Army is panzified? And I don't mean panzerfied like German tanks. I mean panzified as in they're a bunch of pansies. I hope one of these gender dysphoric, gender confused people meets me on the street someday and tries explaining to me how getting the right pronoun makes them a better soldier. Unfreaking believable. Now you'll know it's done. I'll stop telling people that I was a Marine if the Marines start this shit. Unbelievable, folks. We got a hot war, cold war going, and we need to worry about that. Oh, well, let's pour some fuel on the fire, right? Pete Buttigieg, I believe he is the Secretary of Transportation, right? He's going to take his train and put it in the tunnel, I guess, right? Pete Buttigieg says that buying oil from Iran is now on the table. Well, Biden has imposed restrictions, more restrictions on domestic drilling, really? Now, Pete Buttigieg and Iran seem to be strange bedfellows, do they not? Strange bedfellows. First, though, folks, Iran was a nuclear threat to the world, to Israel. But to Biden, they're a potential trading partner in oil now. By the way, folks, Iran is allies with both Russia and China. We're not going to get a good deal out of this, especially from some limp-wristed, effeminate diplomat, if that's what he thinks, if he's the one talking to him, right? We're not going to get a good deal here, folks. It's too bad that the United States government under Biden, the Democrats, and the completely left-wing bureaucracy, it's too bad that that government up in D.C. has messed up things for us, the people of the United States of America. The U.S. government has messed things up for the United States of America, us. And it's not gonna get better. I mean, okay. To give you an example how this isn't going to get better, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, aka Beetlejuice or Larry, has been accused of, and there is now some legal work being done because she has berated her staff. So this female mayor of Chicago was apparently in meetings and berating her staff, that is, employees of the city. And she didn't like what was being done. She made racial derogatory terms about Italians and a statue of Christopher Columbus. Over this statue and a parade and everything else, she berated and defamed lawyers for the city and said that this is a quote from a woman who is the mayor of Chicago. "My dick is bigger than yours and the Italians. I have the biggest dick in Chicago." Well, I guess Michelle Obama has the biggest one in Washington, D.C., I suppose. Folks, this is the problem. I think we've laid out who the problem cases are. I mean, I think we've clearly explained what the heck is going on, right? It is unbelievable what is happening. It just gets more shifty, right? It's that bad. I mean, for real. If you had to see that, would you work with it? Now, this is something I thought was very fascinating from an SHTF perspective. It is 2022. And you know what happened in 2020? We had the Summer of Love. We had over, 300 different individual riots that were full of burning, looting, murdering, assaulting police, burning courthouses that the left-wing lunatics did. And we're in 2022 and we have another election. So Vernon Jones says he's going to nominate Trump for Speaker of the House. And once the Senate confirms impeachment of Biden and Harris, then Trump would be the president of the United States. That would be very interesting. Now, while the odds of this are extremely low, right? Trump could run for Congress in 2022, folks, and he'd be done with his 2-year term in time for the 2024 presidential election. Trump could run for Congress in 2022, and if the Republicans take Congress, he would become Speaker of the House. Can you imagine the absolute head explosions of Democrats? They would be triggered like you can't believe. Trump would become number 3 in secession or line for president. Now, if both Biden and Kamala were impeached, and they could probably be simultaneously impeached for the same high crimes and misdemeanors that many have complained they've committed. And if they were to be removed, Trump would be president. Now, again, the mere idea of this happening will cause such a massive terror in the hearts of Democrats, folks. They will have strokes and seizures galore. Yes, it is, folks. It is SHTF politics for our SHTF lives. Please be prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, and a plan. We've got to be prepared. Nothing but trouble coming. Nothing but trouble, folks. Are you prepared? There's a lot going, right? And speaking of preparing, it's not just little guys like me and people like you. We need to share the internet address with everybody for these videos. You need to text, email, write, phone call people and say, get prepared. Go to the Prepared Mind. You need to do that. But we're not alone. The French president, right? Emmanuel Macron, huh? He had what he is referring to as a disheartening call with Vladimir Putin of Russia. A disheartening call because he went and discussed Ukraine with Vladimir Putin of Russia. So Macron says this, prepare for the worst. Now, he didn't say prepare for more of the same. He didn't say prepare for stuff to get a little more difficult, a little pinch, little hurt, little angst. Prepare for the worst. Does that mean food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense in France? Prepare for the worst, says Macron. It's almost as if the French leadership has already surrendered the country in a war that's not even coming to them. In terms of energy, natural resources, etc., Russia is a big player, folks. And Macron says, prepare for the worst. Are you ready? Right? Now, he was talking probably to the French people, but we in America here, we need to be smart about this. Preppers, we've been watching this for a long time. Unbelievable, folks. Now, let's come back domestically again. Dominion, Dominion voting machines has been kicked out of Tennessee County. There are critical election issues that remain all over the country. And Dominion, of course, the executive for them just got arrested the other day for running into a bar, fleeing the scene, and then getting arrested and lying to police, right? We've got some big problems, folks. General election reform news from across the United States. Courts are upholding the fact in many, or I would say a majority of the cases, that these emergency rules put in place by Democrats are unconstitutional. Right? We have a voting system that worked, and it has been hijacked, and people are very much worried about it. And folks, the Democrats are worried about it too. Everyone's fighting over this. The control of everything having to do, right, with elections. Because this is 2022, folks. We have a new Cold War, which Russia is treating as a hot war against its NATO opponent. We have a sissified military run by the Pentagon, while we've got problems in real world times, folks. And then we got our domestic issues. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to describe our domestic problems and the severity of them by talking about Iran. John, how do you do that? How do you tie Iran and people in the United States, right? This is how bad it's going to be for you and me, based on what the federal government, that is the U.S. government in D.C., is doing with Iran. Iran requested that Biden remove its Revolutionary Guard from the terrorist watch list. Now, the Revolutionary Guard, folks, isn't a bunch of terrorists running all over the Middle East bombing stuff. It is like their Marine Corps, okay? Their Revolutionary Guard. It's their best army, okay? It's their best elites, whatever they got. It's their special forces. So that's what they requested Biden do, remove its Revolutionary Guard from the terrorist watch list. What good would that do? Would it allow them to travel? I don't know. But here's what they got. So they requested that, and so the Biden administration took 112 Iranian officials off of its terrorist watch list. But never forget, never ever forget, folks, parents of children in the United States of America are considered by the federal government in Washington, D.C., the FBI, the Attorney General's office, they're considered domestic terrorists. Domestic terrorists in our own country, while the federal government in Washington, D.C. looks at Iran and takes 112 of their senior radical officials off of a terror watch list. Does that make any sense? Does that make a lick of sense at all? Well, it shouldn't to you. It doesn't to me. It doesn't make a lick of sense. That's how jacked up everything is, folks. That's how jacked up it is. Now, the other day I did mention that the fight in DC is real, and it should be, and we should be sending real conservatives, real constitutionalists and libertarians to DC to fight. We got some fighters in there now. Now, during the State of the Union, Boebert, Representative Boebert out of Colorado, kept pointing out that we lost 13 American lives. You know, our people were killed because of his decision. And Nancy Pants Pelosi told her to, quote, shut up, essentially agreeing with none other than little sissy pants Senator, what was his name? Lindsey Graham. That is quite a name, folks. If I was a man, and my name was Lindsey, I think I would not like having that name, because Lindsey Graham is really taking that name and feminizing it. Anyways, so this is what Boebert tweeted in response. And this is what we should all be doing, folks. Communicating with these people like they are our servants. They are not our superiors. They are not our sovereigns. They are public servants serving us, or at least they should be. So Boebert tweeted in response to Pelosi agreeing that she should shut up. She said in her tweet, "So Fancy Nancy is upset about me speaking out at the State of the Union. What's she so torn up about? I will not shut up about Biden's failure in Afghanistan and the 13 heroes we lost because of it." That's right. We got 13 more martyrs. Thank you, Biden. Biden did this, folks. There's people's lives who are turned upside down. Their husbands, their wives, their children, their dads and moms getting killed because political ineptness and military ineptness, incompetence, and boobery that's going on with the military in DC. Meanwhile, we're going to talk tough with Russia? Really, we're going to talk tough with Russia, right? We're going to scare Russia? Folks, this is ridiculous. A United States ammo company has said it's going to donate 1 million rounds to Ukraine. And it's got a quote in this: prepare to move quickly. I got one question, right? Is the ammo and or its constituent components that this ammo company wants to donate, is it by any chance made in Russia or a foreign country? You know, brass, primer cups, primer material, powder, lead, copper. Unbelievable what is going on. Unbelievable, folks. What are we to do? For now, get ready. Watch what's happening. Watch what's happening, folks. This is unbelievable. I mean, how much more do we need to say? I mean, we're going to keep saying everything we can. Right? Taiwan today. Taiwan Power Company said in a brief statement, folks, that its southern power grid system encountered a malfunction causing the blackout. That's right, folks. Taiwan was blacked out. Large sections of it. Knock-on effects from the outage triggered power outages in some parts of northern and central Taiwan as well. The malfunction took place at Kongsing's power plant, right? The biggest power plant in southern Taiwan. Now, Could this be hacking, viruses, cyber attacking from China? Folks, in my mind, there is no doubt at this point. Computer controls, right, should maximize efficiency and notify operators of problems. There shouldn't be any malfunctions. There should be no surprises at that level, folks, that level of operation. Malfunctions just don't happen. I guess these lipsticked, pantyhose wearing, sissified pink hair military types, I guess they could be cyber warriors. Let me ask you a question though. What do you think happens to cyber warriors when real warriors kick in their door and pull them out into the street? Right, what are they going to do? Pull out their squirt guns and fight back? If you piss people off enough, they're going to respond and retaliate. And that's what we're really building in this world. The left has gone about domestically doing divide and conquer. Divide and conquer, divide and conquer, splitting everyone into little groups and attacking them. They've tried it in the world too, folks. Trying to split Russia from the former Russian republics. Trying to split within countries, faction against faction. It's unbelievable, folks. The consequences of this are telling, right? We are entering an era of geopolitical unrest, which includes war. And I guess I want to end with this and then get to your questions, your comments, your statements, your subjects. There's a 22-year-old Stanford, it's a big college, right up there in the Bay Area of California. 22-year-old Stanford women's soccer star and captain dies unexpectedly. Was this an accident? Was she fully or just partially juiced? Right? Was she assassinated? That's a new term for you. Came up with that one myself. Folks, another super athlete suddenly dies, and we're supposed to pretend it's a tragedy instead of saying we need to question the science because of this tragedy and see if that's what caused it, right? Because science has clearly failed and been a massive lie. Science has clearly failed, and we've been putting up with a massive lie. Wow. Just wow. Are you ready? Are you prepared? Do you understand what's coming, folks? Right? All we can do is crack jokes and use our sarcastic, right, attitude. That's it, I guess. That's all we got. So I guess we'll use it.
Cut out the jibber jabber. Don't be babbling like a fool. Say what you got to say. That's all. Then shut your dang pie hole.
Woo! Okay, let's do this. Let's get into your questions. It is now the bottom half of the hour, your Q&A time. I know you got a lot to think about, folks. We're coming up on the weekend. What is happening? Well, before I even get to play the little changeover special thing, Jolene jams one in there. She says, this is from Latin American Preparedness. Another war causing all of us to fund both sides. Ukraine is funded by the Biden administration through tax dollars. Russia is funded through higher oil prices caused by the executive order of Biden. Oh, you bet. We're paying for this. We're coming and going, right? It's incredible. I mean, I'm glad you made this point. Let us remember, folks, that the industrial military complex, or the military industrial complex, is right up there with the industrial energy complex, along with the medical industrial complex. They're all screwing us over. Then you got the financial industrial complex. That's Wall Street screwing us over. And then you've got the Treasury industrial complex stealing our money from us. Well, in this case, what Latin American preparedness is talking about is we're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. We're trying to get our toes in there with NATO. If we were to go into Ukraine, the United States military with NATO, we would build NATO air bases and military bases. We would pay for that and then put our troops there and our missiles and our planes. And we, the American people, would pay for that. On the other side, how are we funding Russia? Yeah, the United States, the United States citizen, we are the ones funding the Russian side of this war. Because Biden has cut the Keystone Pipeline off and said, we don't want your cheap Canadian oil, screw that, and cut off exploration here in the United States of America. Said, no more of that. Let's cut our production. We were a net oil explorer and exporter. Then Biden turns to OPEC and says, would you please produce some more oil for us? And they were like, F you, Biden, right? They've heard that. Let's go, Brandon. You can hear it loud and clear coming all the way from Qatar. Yep. Saudi Arabia. I hear it. Yes, I do. Oh, there it is. United Arab Emirates. A big F you, Biden. You bet. So where are we going to get our oil? Oh, from Mother Russia. Mother Russia. As prices go up, folks, up and up and up and up and up and up, we have to buy more and more oil from Russia. But John, Biden sanctioned Russia. Biden sanctioned him. Well, there's a caveat, exemptor on there, okay? There's an exception to the rule, as there are always exceptions to the rule. This particular exception says this. Russia, we think you're terrible, awful, terrible. You're an aggressive, militant. You're terrible, bad. But we'll buy your oil from you. So we're buying oil from Russia at record rates, at record prices. And where do you think that money goes? Into Rosneft, into the Russian government. So what are they paying for their war? You could say that we are paying for their war, folks, against us. So once again, we're paying for both sides. Hey, Biden did this. Jeez, Jiminy Crickets. All right. Hey, now it's time for Q&A.
Are you ready?
Okay, everybody. The video this morning was darn good. I don't even know what got cut off. We've got our provider, internet service, broadcast provider, and they had some goof ups. Totally erased the entire center section out of video. I apologize for that. We're turning knobs and dials, dialing things in. We'll get her fixed. Okay, let's do this. Let's get to the next Q&A statement question. It's never too late to get a question, by the way. This is from the Slim One. He says, statement for John. These little army recruits who are so willing to come take old country boys' guns aren't exactly trying to get to the front of the line to go after Russian soldiers, are they? You know, I don't know. I don't know what these 18-year-old, fresh out of high school type, they're centennials. They're not millennials. They're now centennials or Gen Zers, right? Gen Z. There's some, okay, let me put it to you this way. I've got two sons. And one of them is an excellent example of a red-blooded, old school, Second Amendment loving American. My son Luke is just, He's not an extreme wacko. He's not dangerous, but he is just like you and I were when we grew up. He is all testicles. He's all muscles. He's all virile, right? But I've seen a lot of people in the military that are not. Men wearing women's army uniforms in the army. What? That used to be a freaking joke on the show called MASH. Klinger. Guy's name was Klinger, right? That's the character. He was trying to get out of being in the Korean conflict, another conflict, the Korean War. He wanted out, so he pretended to cross-dress. Now, as a kid, I thought it was funny because I understood the joke. Today, it's no joke. These people don't want to get kicked out of the army like Klinger did. Okay, they want to get in and make everyone accept it. They want to get in and rub it in our faces. They want to get in and make you call them by whatever pronoun they choose. You don't get fucking pronouns in the military. You get private, lance corporal, corporal, sergeant, gunnery sergeant, etc. You get lieutenant, major, captain, colonel, general. There's your frickin' pronouns, right? The Russian soldiers are itching to engage these soft, spineless wimps that are ruining our military. Folks, the world used to tremble if the 82nd was coming after them, if the 101st was coming after them, airborne, army. They used to tremble knowing the Marines were coming. Folks, in Japan, World War II, as the Marines were moving through the islands to get up to Japan, the people of Japan were so scared they would throw themselves off the cliffs into the ocean because they were afraid of the Marines. That is respect for military power and military reputation. I don't like the idea that people died. I don't like that, okay? But I'm saying that is how much they were feared. Fear is a deterrent. Fear changes people's behavior, makes them behave very well. It sure would have been nice, folks. It would have been really nice, right, if our military could have at least kept that. But no, we're going the other way. Anyways, thank you, Slim One. Bring it on, Lipstick Brigade. I'm sure nobody is afraid of you at this point. All right, we got Do Be Kind. Do Be Kind. He says, rumor is the U.S. Army will come out with a new combat skirt for the confused gender dudes. Will include light armor in the front and the back. You know, probably have light armor in the front. I'm sure that they'll keep the rear clear, right? Because, yeah, you know, they don't mind taking it from the rear. It's you know, I don't have a problem with homosexuals. I have a problem with people getting in my face about it. I don't have a problem with homosexuals. I have a problem with our military being destroyed from the inside, effeminized, turned into a joke, right? While we spend how many hundreds of billions of dollars every year on the military, as far as equipment, planes, ships, etc., they really do believe, folks, that they're going to have a remote control war, that all they need is a bunch of out-of-shape slobs wearing different colors of lipstick, sitting in dark rooms, playing games with drones and, you know, robot soldiers. I think that's where they want to go. I really think that. I think they want a bipedal and quadruped robotic soldiers with armament, right? Armored as well as armed, you know, supplied with small arms. And that would be what they want, using high-tech cameras and the internet and cell phones, 5G, all that, so they can just go through and just wipe people out. So these little sissies, these little pansies, right, can do that. Now again, I don't want to see people hurt. I don't glamorize and glorify war, but it used to be very personal. I want to refer you to the American Revolution against the English. The English had been abusing the American colonists, and they got to one of the decisive battles, and the Americans had very little ammo. They had very little ammo. And so they were told, do not fire until you see the whites of their eyes. That is the British, their eyes, the whites of their eye. It didn't mean wait till they're 5 feet from you, but wait till you can see them clearly, and so that you know that the ammo you use will be well spent. Right? In other words, you'll hit your target. That was personal, folks. And after you fired a volley or two, they charged at each other with sword drawn as officers, or using the bayonet on the rifles to engage the enemy. It was very personal. You saw your enemy. You knew who they were and what they stood for. And when you won the battle, right, you won something. It meant something. What does battle mean to Americans today? They don't see it. They don't understand it. When they're exposed to it, they claim they got PTSD. I'm not talking about the soldiers. I'm talking about people who see combat footage. They claim, post-traumatic stress disorder from seeing real combat. Yeah, you ought to see, folks, real combat. Talk to a combat vet and they'll give you an idea if they will talk about it. Many of them don't want to talk about it. They can't talk about it. They don't. But the war used to be very personal, right? Your enemy, you have personal problems with. Now you look at it and go, well, Russia's our enemy, but why am I mad at them? What did they do? Oh, they wouldn't let you go steal that country's stuff. So I'm supposed to hate Russians because of that? We'll leave it at that. Let's just leave it at that. Think about that, right? We've got real enemies here in this country, folks. Real ones. We got FJP13 says, so why all of the distractions? What really lurks? Penelope and others have been bringing this up. Like, okay, there's a lot going on all of a sudden. Why all the distractions? We need some really big distractions, some really important distractions, some near permanent distractions, and Russia's basically providing that with Ukraine. Right? They're saying they're not quitting, they're not giving up. They've had it. This is a hot war against NATO, starting in Ukraine. Depending on what NATO does, it may spread to other NATO countries that were former Soviet Union countries. We're going to find out, folks. That's a big ass distraction, is it not? They need to distract us. They need to scare us. See, distraction is one thing, but to get people to accept something takes a lot of fear. So they're putting that fear out there. We need a couple good false flags in this country and blame someone else and say, oh my God, it's right-wing extremists. Oh my God, it's Russian cells in this country. Well, first of all, Biden's been letting everyone in at the southern border, so surprise there, right? Still, let us step back. They need some distractions, folks, because cerveza bug has fallen right on its frickin' face. The Jim Jones juice is falling right on its face. It's exposed. It's garbage. It's a crime against humanity. And they know it. The problems from that, folks, are going to be so horrific. They're already horrific, and they're going to get worse. They need to cover it up. They need to hide it. They need us distracted and scared. They need us permanently distracted. I mean, with people's attention span today, in 2 years, do you think Americans will come back and go, remember back in 2020 and 2021 when you had us all locked down? Did we ever settle that? Who did what? Who said what? Who knew what? Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson. Who knew what, where, when, and how? So we can find out why people around us are keeling over with cancer and all sorts of heart problems and everything else. Who's to blame? Oh, folks, they need some big distractions. They need us to forget all about it. Now, Biden, of course, did talk about building a wall to keep the vaccine out. It's like, what? And then he continued to push and say, you need to get the Jim Jones juice anyways. The booster rooster, he got out of his cage once and said, we're going to need a number 4 booster around here. And then they put him right back in the cage, in the closet. He's not scaring anyone, for one. People are really starting to go, I took that stuff. And people are getting sick. People are getting hospitalized. Guess what they're going to do, folks? Let me give you a prepared mind prediction. You ready for this? As much as they were promoting the hospitals being overrun with cerveza bug patients, people that were sick and dying, when the hospitals get packed and packed and packed with people because they got blood clots, heart problems, strokes and seizures, the media is not going to be reporting it, folks. They're going to be hiding it. They're going to hide it. They're going to hide it. They're going to hide it because they don't want to be responsible. The media, folks, is complicit in this. They didn't ask the questions. Some media has started asking questions going, why didn't we question this? Yeah, we'd like the same freaking question answered. All right, we got David checking in, and he says the NFL. Good golly, Miss Molly. The NFL, the National Football League, has suspended all cerveza bug protocols. The United States Senate just voted to end all cerveza bug national state of emergency. Even California, with Governor Gavin Newsom, is dropping their mandates for El Masco. Is this the end of cerveza bug? This statement question by you, David, ties right in to the last subject. Why do we need all this distraction? What is really going on? Oh, folks, there's problems. There's problems with the currency. We've got massive inflation. We've got problems, folks, with our economy. I saw the word recession used today in a newspaper. Yeah, we're starting to get some recession, aren't we? We've got all kinds of problems in our country, folks, from voting to the money, to education, to the military, to politicians. They need to hide it all. They need some big distractions. So you got all these problems right here at home in America, all these domestic problems. And so they started a shit pile of problems over in Ukraine. Do you think for a second we were told that Biden, he's going to go in there and take care of the Russians? He was the only one. Remember this claim? I'm the only one that ever stood toe to toe with Putin. Putin's like, Joe who? Right? He told Ukraine, if Russia takes one step over that line, we'll be right there with you. Russia steps over the line. Ukraine turns around and goes, hey, where's America? Where's NATO? And then they just start getting asses kicked by Russia. And it's going to continue. Remember, folks, I think it took 6 weeks for the Nazis to take Ukraine. And they just killed everybody on the way to the capital. Russia is actually meeting with Ukrainian diplomats, working out a peace accord right now. Yeah, they're not treating them the way the Nazis did. But Russia wants Nazis out of Ukraine. Russia wants Nazis out of Ukraine. So knowing they had no chance in hell of putting American troops into NATO jurisdictions, why did they keep antagonizing Putin? Unless it was to piss Putin off so badly that he did what he has done. Can of worms, Pandora's box, shitstorm on fire. Thank you, Klaus Schwab. Thank you, Germany, France, England, etc., NATO countries. Thank you for doing that. Now we can all pretend that cerveza bug can just kind of go away. But don't worry, you'll be reminded every time some diehard extreme leftist walks by you or drives by you wearing a frickin' mask. You're going to be like, oh, why is he wearing the mask? Why is he wearing a mask? Why is she wearing a mask? What's wrong with these people? They still think the masks work. They still think the masks help. Even if they're juicinated, even if they're completely jacked on the juice, they're still wearing the masks, hoping something works. I'm continuing to get reports also of people who have gotten juiced, who are having a harder time than ever in their life fighting off simple colds. They're being completely inundated with symptoms of cold or flu or just feeling like crap, low energy. Shortness of breath is a huge one. Folks, shortness of breath. Shortness of breath. Pulmonary, lungs, right? If you're short of breath, you've got some lung issues. I know somebody personally. I'm like 99.99% sure, fully juicinated. Can't breathe, right? Can't breathe, loses energy, can't work, can't talk for an extended period of time. Person's a teacher, by the way, can't talk. Yeah. The slim one checks in with lots of question marks and says, how are we ever going to have fair and open elections again after what happened this last time? I just don't think I can trust the people to do the right thing that are in those places, positions, jobs. I'll tell you what, slim one, I don't trust them at all. Because in the last election, there was a Democrat leader in the state of Colorado who says they will lie, cheat, and steal to win the election. Just came right out and said it. No, making a joke out of it. And by the way, this guy was a hardcore Antifa type. These people are hardcore about what they're doing. Why do you think they're so against the state of Texas or the state of Arizona or any other state passing election reform? Why do you think they hate the idea of getting rid of the Dominion voting machines? Because they want to show up, folks, with pre-printed ballots and jam them through the machines for 2022. If those machines aren't in place, what does that mean? We were lied to by this Eric the bar basher of Dominion. We were lied to about the ability to log on to these machines, that they're hooked to the internet. Yes, they are. Completely hooked to the internet. Who's tallying the votes? Say you've got a room with a dozen of these counting machines in it. Who goes to each machine and gets the numbers off? How do we know they don't go to a machine 10 times in a row and produce the results that machine had 10 times? Well, what we do know is that, back in 2024, during that presidential election of 2024, hasn't happened yet. There were areas of the country, folks, where there were more voters or votes cast than there were voters. Do you want to see that again? I certainly don't. It has hit the fan, folks. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. I caught an article, lost the details because it has just been incredibly busy up here. And I know the same for you. But they're already complaining that they're not going to be able to accurately count votes in 2022, that there's going to be problems tallying it. They're already telling us how there's going to be problems, folks. So what should we do? Expect a shit ton of bad news coming out of this. Yeah, shit ton. That's a legitimate term there. All right, we've got Bonnie Blue checking in, says stagflation is here. I agree with you, Bonnie. Companies dropping hourly pay for low-level employees. See UPS dropping hourly pay by $3 an hour and cutting hours. The economy is taking a crap, folks. It's just going down like an airplane landing. Over the last couple of years, it's just slowly going down. Going to touch down somewhere. And yeah, a big yeah. They're here for us, folks. Stagflation is here. Prices going up. Companies are going to go out of business because they can't afford to hire people. They're not getting enough business. Now, someone like UPS, they got all kinds of business, don't they? Shouldn't they? Amazon, shouldn't they? Where people, they're like not spending money. So UPS is like, oh, I guess we're going to have to cut pay and cut hours. I know of restaurant owners who are barely making the payments, folks. Incredible. It's absolutely incredible that they're barely making the payments. Right? Food comes in much higher. Food costs are way up. Sales are down. We lost a lot of businesses because of cerveza bug, folks. A lot of businesses. We're going to lose a lot more because of the coming depression. If it wasn't being lied about, they would have to admit that we've already entered it. Oh, yeah. What do we want to talk about, folks? Where are we going? Where are we going? I mean, what's most important to you? We're being distracted. We're being picked at. China, folks. China. Earlier I mentioned Taiwan and their power outage, a malfunction. China's been threatening the United States. We're going to go take Taiwan. You can't stop us. That's our country. It was always been a part of China. Well, now, after abstaining in a United Nations vote to condemn Russia, China is actually blaming the United States and NATO for the Ukraine war. China said, well, we're not going to buy that Russian oil. You believe that? I've already described how the prices of oil are going up crazy everywhere. China is seeing their oil price go up. Well, Russia's oil price, they're making bank too. If they finally ever fully sanction Russia and Russian oil, China will just buy Russian oil. Right? Now, yeah, China did state they wouldn't buy Russian oil because of Russia's aggression. They're blaming the United States and NATO for the Ukraine war. And what next, folks? They're going to buy Russian oil? Are they going to dump, folks? Is China going to dump more U.S. Treasury bonds? Are they going to push for their global reserve yuan? Folks, shit hitting the fan is a time of great change, right? Never let a good crisis go to waste, said Rahm Emanuel, stating for everyone to hear the globalist adage, right? Never let a good crisis go to waste. That is such a popularized phrase and notion, folks, that they don't just let or never let a good crisis go to waste. They create crisis so they can take advantage of the fallout situation, folks. They create crisis. That's what false flag is. Creating a crisis so that people scream, do something. And then the government offers a solution that they wanted all along. They need to, they're busier than a cat with 4 buttholes and 12 paws in the sandbox trying to cover up all the shit it's made. There's paws and sand and shit flying everywhere. They're like, we really messed this up. Let's start a war with Ukraine and Russia and get that going. That'll keep them busy over there, keep people distracted, keep people scared as things fall apart here. It's a terrible situation, folks. It's terrible. My recommendation, get prepared, prep to action. Call your representatives, your senators. Call, fax, text, email, smoke signals, carrier pigeon, get it done, and let them know where you stand. Let them know where you stand. Because we don't need, folks, for them to tell us that we need to stand with them. Because Washington, D.C. is not our ally. It is the opponent of freedom and liberty. It's the opponent of freedom and liberty. Folks, chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. Godspeed, Semper Fi. Go to thepreparedmind.club and get prepped up. Do it. Do it now.